This is Algebra 2, Chapter 12, Section 5, in which we will study the law of cosines. Last time around we dealt with the law of sines and how to use it to find missing information in triangles that are not right triangles. And we found out that we need to have an angle and a side that are opposite of each other to be able to make it work. Okay. Sometimes you don't have that information. Never fear, we have another tool in the toolbox. Okay. We have something called the law of cosines. Now before you panic, no, there's not a law of tangents. I don't know why. Maybe they couldn't find a good use for it. But there are three different variations on the law of cosines. And they all are basically the same thing. It just depends on what information you have. A squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine A. Or b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine B. Or c squared equals a squared minus b squared, or plus b squared minus 2ab cosine C. Okay. The Pythagorean theorem that we all know and love, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, is hiding right here. This is an adjustment that comes from it not being a right triangle. Okay. Now the question is, which one of the three should we use? And the short answer is it depends on what you know, what information you have. Typically, the choice of which one of these formulas you want to use is based on the angle that's involved in the situation. Okay. For example, here we have this triangle. Angle B is 82 degrees, and we have sides A and C. Since angle B is the one I'm working with, I'm going to use the angle B version of the formula. Okay. Well, since I've got that set up, I can start plugging in the information I know. Okay. B squared equals 6 squared plus 4 squared for A and C, minus 2 times 6 times 4 times cosine of 82. Okay. Doing a little arithmetic work here. Okay. 36 plus 16 minus this product, my calculator tells me is 45.328. So when I take the square root, now I have a value for B, which is 6.733. Okay. Now that I have B, I have an angle and the side opposite that angle. Well, that means I can go to the law of sines now. Okay. So sine of 82 over its side, which is the 6.733 we just found, equals, I'm going to go after A next, sine of A over 6. Showed you something you shouldn't see yet. So now if I cross multiply, and I find out sine of 82 as I go, then I can divide by the 6.733. Now to find the value for A, we've done this already, where we can use the inverse sign. Tells me that A is just under 62 degrees. Well, now that I have that, I can find angle C just by subtracting from 180 degrees. Subtract the two that I know, and that tells me that angle C is a touch over 36. Hopefully you notice that we only had to use the law of cosines once. Once we have the information that will let us, we can go to the law of sines, which is a lot faster than the law of cosines. Law of cosines helps us get to a place where we can use law of sines. Now, we said earlier that the choice of which formula to use really hinges on which angle you have. Well, consider a case where you don't have any of the three angles. The rule is then you want to find the largest angle. The largest angle will involve the largest side. So since A is the biggest side, 16 is bigger than either of 9 or 10, since that's the biggest side, angle A will be the biggest angle. So I need to use the A version of the formula. So I'm going to plug in the information I have. I'm going to do some arithmetic. Now notice here, this is a very key point. This is where people make a big mistake a lot of times. All right, you notice I put these two together, 81 and 100, and then I subtracted them over. I did not combine the 81 plus 100 minus 180. Okay, the minus 180 is attached to the cosine A. I cannot combine all of these terms together. You can't do it. It's illegal math. Not to mention you will get the problem wrong every single time. Pay close attention to what you're doing here. You have to leave this attached to the cosine A. So I subtracted those two out of my way to get rid of them. Now I can divide by the negative 180. Do the inverse cosine and find out that angle A is 114 and change. Well, now that I have that, I can go to law of sines. Okay, I have angle A and I have side A. Those two go together. I'm going to go after just the next angle in line A, B, C, so I'm going after B. No special reason. Sine of B over side B. So I'm going to cross multiply. 16 times that equals 9 times sine of that. Divide by the 16, so I find out sine B is 0.511. So I'm going to do the inverse to find out that angle B is 30.7 and change, 30 3/4. Now if I subtract those away from C, I find out that C is 34.6 and change. Now I have all the information I needed. Okay. A big part of trying to solve these problems is deciding where to start. And I've got a chart that I've put together for you that I stole right out of your book that will help you know what to do. Okay. When you're first starting out on the problem, you need to take a look at this chart and see what you have so that you can work with it. If you know you have a right angle and you know anything else in the problem, then your ratios will work, your opposite over hypotenuse and your opposite over adjacent and those kinds of things. If you have any two angles and any one side, it doesn't matter which one, you can go straight to the law of sines because you can find your third angle from subtraction. Okay. If you have two sides and you have an angle opposite one of those sides, you can also go to the law of sines. As long as you have an angle and a side across from it, law of sines is your friend. Okay. If you don't have that situation, if you have two sides and the angle is in between the two sides, you don't have a choice. You gotta go cosines. And if you have all three sides, you don't have any angles, you gotta go cosines. And when you do that, you're looking for the biggest angle first. It's only necessary to use the law of cosines one time in a problem. You're allowed to use it more than once if you want to, but it's the longest of the approaches. So most people, as soon as they can get rid of it, they do. You may not need to use law of cosines at all. If you have to use it, you only have to use it once per problem. Okay. Consult your chart and it will help you know where to start. That rhymes. So if you had questions along the way, hopefully you wrote those down. Bring them in with you and we'll see you in class.